This is Dr. Stephen Cangiano. I am the president and co-founder of RDT.Media and Events with its online companions, relationship-development.com and humanity-upgrade.com. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce, he doesn't like when I say this, but he is a rock star in the personal development industry. Noah St. John is known as the Power Habits Mentor and is famous for inventing Afformations, not affirmations, Afformations. And he's going to get into that in detail with us. And helping his coaching clients, this is an astounding generate an astounding 2.7 B with a billion or billion with a B dollars in sales since 1997. Noah is the only author in history to have works published in Hay House, HarperCollins, Simon Schuster, Mind Valley, Nightingale Conant, and the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher. He also appears frequently in the news worldwide, including ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, Success Magazine, Entrepreneur, and the Huffington Post. Today, we're going to learn about Noah's Affirmations method. You can get more information, and we'll discuss this at affirmations.com. Noah, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Did I miss anything?
I think you covered it, Stephen, and thank you. It's an honor to be here with you today.
It really is. It really is. Now, Noah, you've been helping, and we want to get to your story, but you've been helping people since 1997.
Yep.
Why don't you give a potted history of your personal journey and that one day in 1997 when all of a sudden it clicked for you?
Well, you know, my journey starts a long time before that, Stephen, because I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. I know that's a total cliche, but it's totally true. I grew up in a little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which just happens to be one of the wealthiest communities in New England, but my family was dirt poor. And I mean that literally because we lived at the bottom of a dirt road in a drafty, unfinished house that my parents ended up losing to foreclosure. So from a very young age, I was painfully exposed to the gap, the chasm between the haves and the have-nots. The haves was everyone else in the community. The have-nots was my family. So, you know, you hear these speakers get on stage and they say, well, we were poor, but we were happy. We didn't know we were poor. Well, in my family, we freaking knew we were poor because my mother reminded us every day that we were poor and miserable. Bless her heart. But, you know, that was our family growing up. So I hated that life of poverty and fear and lack and not enoughness. Because right down the street, I saw that there was great wealth and abundance. And I said, there's got to be a way out of this. So, you know, I'm probably the nerdiest nerd in this industry. What I mean by that is, you know, when I see something, when I see a problem, an issue, I just have to solve it, you know, and I got to just roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty and dig in there so that I can really fix the problem. And I've always been that way. So as a nerd, I just did the only thing that we nerds like to do, which is I went to the library and started reading a lot of books on self-help, personal growth, you know, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, all the classics. And I really tried to put those books, what I was reading, I really tried to put them to work, but I just couldn't seem to get it to work. And so at the age of 20,
let me stop you.
Yeah.
You say nerd, but you're actually a fun nerd. And I don't know if I totally agree with that moniker nerd, because I've really seen you in a lot of videos and a lot of your contents, and you really connect with people. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to jump in there for a second. Sorry.
I appreciate that, Steve. Well, let me say this. What I mean by that is, you know, there's a lot of people in the personal and business growth industry, as you know, you and I have been doing this for a long time. And, you know, they just sort of are these people that seem to have it all together, right? And it's like everything sort of fell into place for them. And when you ask them how they did it, they often go, well, you just put out content, you just help people, you just add value. And you're like, well, that doesn't mean anything. So it really drove me nuts when people would say stuff like that, because I'm like, you're not saying anything. So that's what I mean by a nerd is I need to know the steps, right? And they never really told me. And so I had to figure it out on my own, which really took a lot of time and money and effort. But the point that I was getting at earlier is that, you know, as a kid, or, you know, as a young person growing up reading those books and really trying to make them work, I just wasn't finding any success. So at the age of 25, I actually decided to commit suicide. I was so depressed and upset and frustrated. I didn't see a way out. I really didn't see a way out of that situation because I was very, you know, unhappy and broke and miserable. And I've been reading success books for so many years. So like, it didn't make any sense. So I literally decided to take my own life. I tell that story in my books and my, my seminars, but long story short, at the very last moment, my life was spared. I didn't know why at the time, but I realized that I made a decision to devote the rest of my life to serving God and serving humanity as best I could while I was still here on the earth. The only problem was I still didn't know why I was here on the earth. So I went on another long journey. This one was more of a spiritual journey. The first was more like an outer journey, like what is outer success, which it didn't work for me. But then I went on a spiritual journey, more like inner success. What does that mean? To be inner, have that inner success. And so I started reading books like by Ernest Holmes and Louise Hay, Marianne Williamson, Neil Donald Walsh, Deepak Chopra, the spiritual thinkers of our time. So another long story. And then in 1997, fast forward many years, in 1997, that's when I had the two epiphanies that really changed my life. And that led me to actually start my business. The first epiphany, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is, why so many smart, creative, talented people hold themselves back from the level of success they're capable of. That was my first realization. And then the second realization was about my discovery of the Afformations method, which is literally how to change your brain, how to change your subconscious thought patterns, literally using empowering questions. And you can do it in less than 5 minutes a day. So those two things, when were like my aha moments, and kind of all those years of study and hard work and really, failure came together. And then I was able to start my online company, which is called successclinic.com. And unbeknownst to me, I actually launched one of the very first business and personal growth websites on the internet. People would type in success and I would come up, right on the top there on Google way back then. And so the point is, people started hiring me. I started writing books. And as you stated earlier, the bottom line is that now, all these years later, we've helped our coaching clients add collectively over $2.7 billion using my method. So it's really been quite a journey.
That is a tremendous journey. And, it always strikes me when, I've read your stuff, seen you online, we've communicated by email, but when you get to speak with someone, your story really touches. I mean, I can see how it's genuine, real, and it really touches people. Now I got all the pieces together, and we're going to put you on the spot, ask you a few questions. All right.
Fire away.
Affirmations.
Yes.
And I have a little history with Affirmations,
right.
And I loved what you had to say about Affirmations. I actually did the Pacific Institute. I became a certified trainer for the Pacific Institute. Mm-hmm. And the Pacific Institute was all about affirmations.
That's right.
And I like these really, I tell myself I love myself, but if I don't believe it, do I really believe it? And how you talked about connecting that with your affirmations. I don't want to steal your thunder here because I've memorized it now, but I want you to explain it to people, please.
Absolutely. So as you stated, everybody who's ever read a self-help book, probably everybody watching this program right now and listening to the sound of my voice knows what an affirmation is, right? Because it's in every self-help book ever written, right? Talks about affirmation. So an affirmation, as we all know, is a statement of something you want to be true. So like when I'm speaking for virtual conferences, whether I'm doing trainings for companies, whether I'm coaching one-on-one clients, I often play a fun exercise. And I say, okay, we're all going to say an affirmation right now, just like we were taught. And everybody say, I am rich. And everybody goes, I am rich, right? And then you know what happens next? Everybody starts laughing. And I go, well, what are you laughing at? And they say, well, but I'm not rich. And I say, but you just said you were. And they go, yeah, but I don't believe it. Aha. See, now that's the problem, right? So we have been taught for decades, literally, to say these statements, positive statements, and then we're supposed to believe it, and it's supposed to change our lives. Now, for some people, that worked just fine. Some people have a lot of success with affirmations, but for millions of us, it didn't work at all, right? And I shared my story with you earlier that it not only didn't work, I ended up very frustrated and literally suicidal. So I'm like, there's got to be something they're not telling us. So fast forward to, or go back to April 1997. I was a broke college student. I was actually studying religious studies. This was my second time in college. And I was reading all these self-help, doing what I've been doing for many, many years and, following all the steps and, you put the statements, they say, put it on Post-it notes. I'm happy, I'm rich, I'm successful. No, I'm not. I'm broke, unhappy, and miserable. Right. So I'm like, what is wrong here? What aren't they telling us? So I was in the shower one morning, and in my books, I call it the shower that changed everything, right? Because we all have aha moments in the shower, right? Don't we? I'm sure everybody can relate to that. Now, on this particular morning, this particular shower, I said, now, what are we talking about? Because this was bugging me for years. And I said, what are we talking about? We're talking about beliefs, right? Because if you want to change your life, you got to change your beliefs. I knew that part was true, right? So we've only been given this one tool to change our beliefs, a statement, okay, an affirmation. And I'm like, well, how come this isn't working? And then I said, well, wait a minute. We're talking about beliefs, right? Well, what's a belief? A belief is a thought. But what is thought? And the more that I thought about that, I realized that human thought is the process of asking and searching for answers to questions, not statements, but questions. Let me prove it. I can literally prove it to everybody watching right now. And everybody play along if you would. And Stephen, you know, you can play along with me. I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to see what happens. Why is the sky blue? Why is the sky blue? Now, do you know what just happened in your brain in that moment? When I asked you the question, do you know what happened in your brain? You started to search for the answer, right?
Of course, right.
So it's literally like a computer search or a Google search, right? We've all done Google searches, right? You know, show me all the Chinese restaurants in Phoenix, Arizona, or whatever. You're asking a question, right? You're asking a question on Google. Or when you're searching your computer for a file, I need this file, right? You're doing a search. Well, it's the same with your brain. Your brain's a computer. Your brain's like a Google search, right? So your brain is searching its files. The sky is blue because, I don't know, but it's searching, right? It's automatically doing that. So I said, now, wait a second. If the human mind is automatically searching for answers to questions, why are we going around making statements we don't believe? Why don't we just cut out the middleman? And I said, well, what would that look like? This was a very long shower, by the way. And so I said, well, let's see. You've got the statement or affirmation, which they taught us, I am rich. And your brain says, yeah, right. I mean, in my books and my training programs, I literally call it the yeah, right response, because your brain literally goes, yeah, right. And we don't believe it. So I said, well, if that's the statement, then what would the question be? And then I said, why am I so rich? Why am I so rich? Now, when you ask that question, what immediately starts to happen in your brain? You start to search for the answer, right? So what we're talking about, what I teach in my programs and in my trainings, in my workshops, is the law of sowing and reaping. As you sow, so shall you reap. Now, this is nothing new. It's been taught for centuries. But what are we sowing? We're sowing seeds of thought. And yet, what are most people doing? Sowing lousy thought seeds. Why am I so stupid? Why am I so fat? Why can't I lose weight? Why isn't my business growing? Why can't I get the job that I want? Why can't I get a date on Saturday night? Why is there more month left at the end of the money? Right? And when you ask lousy questions, what do you get? Lousy answers, right? Absolutely. And that creates a lousy life. So I said, what if instead of asking lousy questions that lead to lousy answers, create a lousy life? What if we just flip the whole thing on its head, start asking empowering questions that lead to phenomenal answers and create a wonderful life? And as I was standing there in the shower, April 1997, I said, holy cow, I think I just invented something. And so I had to give it a name, and the name that I gave it was Afformations, Afformations. And you can learn more at Afformations.com. And nice. What I realized is that, oh my gosh, this could really change a lot of lives because this is really powerful. Because remember, we'd only been given the one tool, right? A statement. Now, it's not that it's wrong, but for millions of us, it just didn't work. So think about it this way. If you're trying to build a house, if you want to build a house, right? Is it smart to have one tool or more than one tool? Right? So that's what Affirmations, my Affirmations method literally represents. It represents another tool for your toolbox so that you can manifest what you want faster, easier, and with far less effort.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's get into a little nuance because there's some other topics I want to get to. Head trash, which I'm totally on board with you on that one. Give me some nuance on the questions you ask, meaning, for instance, I think you said just a minute ago, I am rich. Is that right? So what if I say to myself, well, I don't believe I'm rich. Is there another question that maybe can take them on a gradient to get to, hey, I feel rich, I am rich, that kind of thing?
Well, first of all, keep in mind that, I teach you the full Affirmations method in my programs like my Affirmations system at Afformations.com, my Affirmations book published by Hay House. So it is a methodology that you need to use. And that also, second, as I teach my clients all the time, this isn't magic, right? It's science. So the point is, all of us, literally every human being walking this earth right now, 7 billion at the time of this recording, we're already using Afformations. Everyone watching this program is already using Afformations. Everyone you'll ever meet is already using Afformations. However, there's two problems. Number one, they don't know they're doing it. Number two, most humans are doing it in a very negative, what I call disempowering way. They're using disempowering questions, like the examples that I gave you a moment ago. Why am I so stupid? Why am I so fat? Why can't I do anything right? Why does nothing ever work out for me? Now notice, most people don't know they're doing this. This is not necessarily a conscious act, but because of the law of sowing and reaping, it doesn't matter. The law of sowing and reaping, it doesn't matter if you're aware of your questions or not. So what is fascinating about the Afformations method, when you start to apply the actual method, you start to discover, for example, one of my clients named Susan, she hired me because she tried everything else out there. She tried all those self-help gurus and all that stuff. She had ended up spending $60,000 on all those guys out there, and yet she was about to declare bankruptcy. She was broke. She was about to lose her home. She was about to lose her marriage. Her husband literally said, you know, you're buying self-help products. We're supposed to be getting better. We're not getting better. We're getting worse. So he couldn't take it anymore. He was about to leave her. And so she literally hired me as a kind of a last ditch effort. Well, it turns out that I taught her my Afformations method and my, my power habit system. And she realized that she'd been asking a lot of really disempowering questions without her knowledge. She'd been doing it unconsciously, right? So I showed her how to flip it around. She started asking empowering instead of disempowering questions. Long story short, within less than a year, she went from $60,000 in debt, about to lose everything, to a six-figure income. Now she has actually published her first book, and she has her dream job, making 6 figures a year. So the point is, it's not necessarily that you, number one, you want to make sure that you become conscious of the disempowering questions that you're asking. That's one of the first things we start to do with our coaching clients. What are you asking? Oh my gosh, I didn't even know I'm going around saying, why am I so stupid? I didn't know I was doing that, right? Well, if you're doing that and you realize it, you go, wow, I mean, no matter what happens, you see yourself through that lens. Say, oh, that didn't work out. Oh, I'm so dumb. Well, what if you flip that around to say, why am I enough? Why am I enough? And then you start to look through that lens. See, we've all heard this, that we all see the world not as it is, but as we are. So what my Afformations method literally empowers and enables you to do is to start to re-see yourself, to see yourself differently and go, wow, I never really thought that I was enough. I never really thought that I was good enough. I never really thought that I could do it. So those are the type of examples that we want to start using, taking the disempowering questions that most humans are asking without their knowledge and just flip them around using the method.
Beautiful. All right. A couple of things. This is great. I want to get into a little so when you look at thought and thought processes, let's say I have this habit of smoking or overeating, whatever the habit is, okay?
Right.
Let's say smoking. So I'm sitting at home in my nice lounge chair. It's cold outside. I'm out of cigarettes. I have this idea of the cigarette. I then have to get up out of my chair, get on my clothes, put on my coat, drive to the 7-Eleven. I have this long lag phase between the idea of smoking and the actual act of smoking. With head trash, which I love that phrase, it's automatic. There's no lag phase in your thoughts. So how do you specifically help people break into that? Are there any special techniques to break into that stream of thought where, why is my life such a struggle? Why can't I lose weight? On and on, those questions those disempowering questions which you outlined.
Yes, absolutely. So that goes to what we call my power habit system. So I just want to be clear for everyone. We have the Affirmations book, which is just about my Affirmations method. But the Affirmations method is part of what we call the power habit system. The full title is The Power Habits of Unconsciously Successful People, meaning what highly successful people do unconsciously that they're not even aware they're doing. Now, let me show you something.
I want to say I didn't set up that question. That was a real question.
Well, I know that. And this is what I want to show everybody. See, this is the whole system. It's right here on page 100 of the Power Habits book. You can get this at powerhabitsbook.com, by the way. But if you can see, that's Afformations method. That is the first step. There are 11 total power habits that I have been teaching, which is why my clients have made so much money, Stephen. But my point to you, to your question, talking about habits and head trash specifically, in the book, what I show you is what I call the habit loop, okay? And the habit loop is a 5-stage process going from cue, routine, reward, craving, and belief. The long point of what I'm getting at here, or the short point, I should say, the short point I'm trying to get at is any habits of thought or behavior are precisely that. They're habits. So the question becomes, and the question I and millions of people have been asking for a long time is, how come habits are so hard to break, even the ones I want to, right? I mean, for example, I don't think there's too many people that don't know that smoking is not good for you, right? Even smokers. I mean, we had one client who she'd been trying to quit smoking for 20 years, trying to quit for 20 years. And she told me that she'd tried everything. She tried hypnosis and CDs and, you know, the patch and everything, and she couldn't quit. She used my Power Habits method. She quit smoking in less than 3 weeks. So, I mean, it's like, why? Because I broke down the process for her and showed her exactly every step of the way. So the point, to your question, is the reason people do that is the habit loop. I mean, the point is you have to look at exactly every step. You have the cue, which is what happens in your life. You have the craving and your brain goes, ooh, I want that cigarette because that will help me to lower my stress or whatever it might be. And then you've got the reward in the brain that says, oh, that feels so much better. Then you've got a craving that happens, right? And then you have the worst part, ironically, I shouldn't say the worst, but the hardest to break is the belief. The belief, I can't quit smoking. See, right. That is literally why so many people who do habits they know they don't even want to do can't even break them. So that's the process I break down in Power Habits.
Beautiful. You know, it's, again, relating to you is so easy for me. I'll tell you why. I taught foot surgery for 13 years. Now, foot doctor, you wouldn't think that the foot is complicated, but to teach, it's very, very complicated.
Yes.
And you had to break it down. It's actually the most uniquely human structure besides the brain.
Right.
You had to break down to be able to teach. You had to. Some people were naturally great surgeons, but awful teachers.
That's right.
And what I love about what you're saying is you have to break down to its minutest little detail and steps to not only understand it, but to more importantly, be able to teach it. And that's, you know what, so I love what you're saying. And again, I didn't set up that question. You did. We just we're kind of vibing on the same level here.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Another thing that I know you're an expert at is online business. And there has never been a time in history and that it's been more important for people to diversify their income online. We had a conversation about a week ago where a lot of businesses are going to see a dramatic decrease in customer flow. Businesses, gyms 30, 40%, doctors' offices, especially ancillary care doctors where it's not an emergency, 30, 40%, restaurants, 30, 40%. What are you, as an expert in this field, what are you telling and advising people?
Well, first of all, again, I appreciate the question because this is the number one question that people are asking me right now. See, one of the things that I've been teaching for many, many years is what I call inner game and outer game. And I can show you that also in the Power Habits book. I show you that right here, that diagram, inner game and outer game. What that means is inner game is everything that happens between your ears. It's the habits and the mindset of highly successful people. That's all the stuff you cannot see, but that affects everything that you do, right? Inner game. But then we also have the outer game. The outer game is everything you can see directly. That is your marketing, your sales process, your customer service, your landing pages, your website, your sales funnels, and so forth. So the truth is, and I should say the uncomfortable truth that people many times don't want to hear is you have to do both. And why I say that's uncomfortable is because there's a lot of so-called gurus, teachers out there, whatever, the gurus, and they basically say, listen, all you need to do is think about money, and money pours in from the sky. Really? What planet is that on? Because I'll move to that planet tomorrow. I mean, what are you talking about, right? But here's the thing that I want people to realize. That is a very sexy message, and everybody wants to believe that. Why do you think The Secret sold 30 million DVDs? Because that's what they said. And by the way, I'm not speaking out of school because everybody in The Secret's a good friend of mine. I mean, Jack wrote the foreword for one of my books, and John Assaraf and so forth. So I know everybody in that movie. They're good friends of mine. But my point is, everybody in that movie knows perfectly well that that movie was about what people wanted to hear, right? What you want to hear is, hey, just think about money, and money falls in from the sky. Yeah, that'd be nice, right? Wouldn't that be great? And that sells, right? But it's fake. That's the problem, is that's totally fake, right? It's a lie. And they just, unfortunately, the way they packaged it was really a lie. So the point is that that's not enough. Is in mindset and habit, our mindset and habits important? Of course they are. That's what I've, been doing for a long, long time and teaching. But what I realized is that for the first, let's say 18, 15 so years that I've been online. See, I was doing this, but I was so excited about teaching inner game that I literally just forgot to teach outer game, because people would come to me and they get incredible results, like doubling, tripling their income just with inner game. And I'm like, well, see, that's all you need. But then they'd come back to me and say, okay, no, now I want to build my online business. And I go, well, but I don't teach that. And they say, well, why don't you teach it? I said, well, because all the marketing gurus say I can't teach that because you're only supposed to do one thing. And then finally, after years of this, I said, why am I doing that? Why am I listening to these clowns? And I said, will you stop it? I've been doing this since 1997. I got one of the first websites. Why don't you teach it? I'm like, duh. You know what I mean? So it was a blinding flash of the obvious. So anyway, long story short, that's why literally only since 2015 have I been teaching outer game, right? The digital marketing piece, even though I've been doing it for over 20 years. So that's what's so funny, isn't it, like, one of those moments? It's a blinding flash of the obvious.
I want to get back to one thing that you said, because I want to emphasize it, because, again, it's weird. We're on the same page with this. And if we weren't on the same page, I would tell you. Believe me, I'm from New Jersey, and I don't have any problem saying it.
I got you.
So I knew some different people in The Secret. I knew Bob Proctor, Neil Donald Walsh, James Ray. I knew these people, and I lectured with them, a long time ago. I have not been in the industry as much or as long as you have. I was in and then out, back in again. So what you said about The Secret and the law of attraction is not enough. Even Oprah Winfrey, and I had this quote memorized for a while, she did a thing with Larry King in 2005, and she said, oh, the law of attraction is important, but it's just one of many laws. Right. And like you said, the sow and reap, law of gestation, however you want to phrase it. Right. And that's really important, because there's a lot of people, when you said that, hey, it was packaged about something that people just want to hear. And my experience is that, and you echoed this, is that most people expect what they don't want and want what they don't expect. And the law of attraction, no matter how many affirmations you do, it's not going to make a difference. So again, kudos to you. Let's talk, give people a little hint of what you recommend to them in their online business. I know you talked about sales funnels, and I actually am on your site. Your team does a phenomenal job of marketing. So you're doing it and you're teaching it, which is great. So please.
Well, like I always say, the proof is in the pudding, right? See, with the gurus, one of the big issues that I have with the industry as a whole, the personal growth industry, is what the gurus say all the time is, I made all this money, so you should give me money. And my whole argument is, well, who cares if you made money? Have you helped anyone else make money? It's like, great that you're driving a nice car, but have you helped other people get nice cars? You see? So I would rather, I'm just, I guess, strange or weird in this industry, because I'd rather brag about my clients, my students, than me, because who cares what kind of car I drive? I mean, the thing is, you don't want to follow Chris Farley, who's living in a van down by the river. I get that. Those of you who know that skit from Saturday Night Live, you can just Google that. But my point is, of course, you want the person you're following, your coach, your mentor, to be successful. No kidding. But to me, the greatest success is not that guy's success. It's have they helped other people. And what we don't see is a lot of that. That's why when you go to my website, as you mentioned, Stephen, you know, that's what you see. You see what we call our client wall of fame. We call it the wall of fame because there's hundreds and hundreds of success stories. That's what I'd rather brag about. That's the proof that I'm talking about. Not that it works for one guy, but that it works for anybody that does the work. And so that's the point. That's who we like to work with, is people who go, all right, listen, I've been trying this a long time. I've tried a lot of different things. I've gone to all the gurus. And I'm not saying that they're bad or wrong. I'm just saying they always leave something out. Why do they leave something out? Well, ironically, because of exactly what I teach. Number one, a lot of times they're unconsciously competent at success, meaning they literally didn't even know what they did, right? They just became successful. Like you were talking about a moment ago, a great surgeon. And you're like, well, how'd you do that? I don't know. You just do it. What's the problem? And you're going, well, do what? Right? See, again, going back to the nerd, right? I was like, would you just tell me what to do? And they'd go, well, I don't know what I did. I just, just do it. And I'm going, oh my God. You know what I mean? So it was very frustrating, quite frankly. So I'm the guy that goes, all right, here's the checklist. And see, I love checklists. And I find that people, my clients, my students, they love checklists because like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. That's what I paid so much money and got nothing. So that's why when people come to me, I'm like, here you go. Here's the checklist. And they go, well, thanks. That was easy. I'm like, yeah, it was actually pretty easy. So when it comes to your online business, that's what we have. We just have a checklist. All right. So everything starts with your offer, right? So here's a great example. People, would they call me? They write me on social media. It used to be they would come to my seminars. Now, of course, we have virtual events that we do for around the world. And people say to me all the time, Noah, I spent a lot of money on Facebook ads and I didn't make any money. And I say, well, why did you do that? They say, well, this guru told me to do it. That guru told me to do it. I'm like, okay. And they made a lot of money doing it. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, when you did these Facebook ads, what were you sending people to? And they go, well, I'd send them to a website. And I go, okay, well, what are you selling on your website? Well, I don't really have anything for sale. I wonder how you could do anything but lose money in that scenario, right? So it's kind of, again, blinding flash of the obvious, for them, because they're like, oh, I never thought of that. I'm like, no kidding, because the guru didn't tell you, because they made tons of money. But guess what? They had an offer. See, so this is what Stephen Covey called begin with the end in mind, right? So the point is, and this all kind of comes together, because what they're selling is sexy, right? It's sexy. Hey, drive lots of traffic. Who doesn't want more traffic? If you're in business, you want traffic, right? Whether it's foot traffic to your brick and mortar or online traffic to your website or funnels, right? You want traffic, of course. So that's what they're selling. Hey, traffic. Yeah. And you're like, but I don't have anything for sale. So it's like, how are we going to make money in that scenario? The answer is you ain't, right? So that's the point. I'm doing the non-sexy stuff, which actually makes you money, called, hello, let's start with the offer. So we flip it on its head and we go, oh, the offer. Yeah, great idea. So that is one of the main reasons that my clients start to make money right away, because it's like, oh my gosh, they skipped the whole non-sexy part. Got
it. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So what I am seeing here is that your congruency comes through. And now I was just reading one of your articles last night, and it was really, really, again, we've been around the block a couple of times, and you think there's not much new, but you really talked about how you really go out and you're helping other people. That's where your other focus, and it really, really, really comes through with this.
Thank you.
All right. So this might be a little redundant question because I think you've answered it, but if you could, in a nutshell, what makes your programs, and we've already hit it, but in a nutshell, what makes your programs different than other people's personal development programs? And if I could do a prelude, a lot of programs, people run into the program. You have to have excitement and engagement and fun, but a lot of times it's just about that. And it's not really about, really how do we make some fundamental differences in the way we think? Please.
Absolutely. So I really think it comes down to one thing, and it's a very simple, but it's very, very powerful and very important, and most people miss it. And that is that those guys are very personality driven. All right. They're not bad guys. They're not mean guys, but it's all about their personality. And because of that personality, they've made a lot of money, right? What my programs are system driven. as opposed to personality driven. So you've got the
Love it.
personality driven, and you know, I paid them a lot of money because, hey, they got a big personality. And I'm like, well, I want that, right? You know, here's the fancy car. And I'm like, hey, we all want nice things, right? So they use those images because they're very sexy. It hits the brain. You're like, ooh, I want that, right? So they're good. They're great self-marketers, great self-promoters, but it's about personality. There's no system. There's no checklist. With me, you get the nerdiest nerd, and that means a checklist, and that means a system. And that's what people love. They're going, oh my gosh. The number one thing we hear for my clients and students literally over the last 2 decades is, I wish I'd found you earlier. I wish I would have known about you before, you know, because it would have saved me so much time, money, and effort. And I mean, I could give you so many stories. Just go to our website. You can read the stories. You can watch the videos. But the point is, that's what it is about. When it is about personality, guess what? If you don't have that personality, you're pretty much out of luck. And that's just like rolling the dice. You're basically rolling the dice. And, you know, hey, hopefully it comes up for you, but mostly it doesn't, right? The house is going to win. Hello. But the point is, with system driven, that's the point. It doesn't matter who you are. That's why we work with, you know, CEOs, we work with celebrities, we work with athletes, we work with teenagers, stay-at-home moms, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, companies, organizations, literally all over the planet. And, you know, we've had over 1 million people now who have experienced my work, which is exciting. And, you know, we want to have over 1 billion people experience the work. So, you know, I got a lot of work to do here, but it's really been a lot of fun. But I really believe it comes down to that personality versus systems. And when you have systems, that means anybody can do it.
Correct. You know, that's beautiful. And that was my thing. There was no systems. It was all hype, hyperbole.
Right.
And one of the key cornerstones that we have here at Humanity Upgrade and RDT.Media events is predictable, sustainable success. The only way to do that is through a system. And again, now I can see why why I really love your work now. And again, and this is actually re-emphasized it. All right. This has been phenomenal. We're going to, you know, next book you come out, we're going to promote it and put it on this is, I know you're doing more stuff, great stuff. How can people get in touch with you, take advantage of your work? Where would you send them?
Absolutely. So to learn more about my Afformations method, just go to Afformations. Remember to put the O in there, Afformations, like, oh, Afformations, Afformations.com. And you can also get my Power Habits book at powerhabitsbook.com. Oh, and by the way, I do have a free training available. It's a free web class that you can actually take at powerhabits.com. Just powerhabits.com. If you want to order the book, powerhabitsbook.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Any final words with people? Because this has really been phenomenal.
Well, let me just say this, you know, having come from poverty, growing up in poverty, and having that decision where I decided to take my own life at the age of 25, and then my life was spared at the very last second. And then, you know, going on to this career of helping people and doing the best that I could to make a difference. What I want people to realize is that if you apply yourself, you can do it too. I think that I would like my story to be an example of someone who came from very, very humble beginnings and someone who has achieved success, whatever that might mean. But to me, success is, how are you helping people? How are you making a difference, as Steve Jobs said, to make a dent in the universe? So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, you're making a big dent. And, you know, I really want to thank you for your time. I think your warmth, sincerity, and competence really came through today. And we really appreciate having you. And as part of this, you know, contributing here, it's really a great honor for us. This is Dr. Stephen Cangiano, RDT Media and Events, signing off. Noah, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Bye for now.